Hello, I'm William Gallagher. Welcome to the Apple Insider Podcast for what somehow is the last week of 2023. This episode is brought to you by Masterclass and Notion. More about those later. First, where's Hilliard? Top of my head, don't know why I'm asking this, can't really conceive why, but would you say perhaps a UK-based podcast presenter might, be wise to head to Heathrow Airport with an armful of Apple Watches, fly to the States and make merry selling them everywhere?
Well, that would only work if this ban actually lasted long enough for stock to sell out, which doesn't seem to be the case, as we'll discuss soon. Apple might have won their stay, their request for a stay. So we'll see what happens there. It's all live and breaking, of course, for a podcast. You'll be hearing this 2 days later.
But if President Biden passed the buck to somebody else and they didn't do anything about it, surely it's going to... Everybody's off for Christmas, aren't they? The New Year, all of this. No, you think something's going to happen soon?
Well, as of seconds ago, let's see. I'm trying to figure out who exactly said okay, because someone said okay.
Oh, no, I missed this. The last thing I knew was that Apple was claiming they needed emergency help, that there would be irreparable harm. And those are legal terms, but even so, it does make me think, I think Apple can cope. But I've missed things, have I? Things have been breaking.
Right, so December 25th, right, Christmas Day, Apple had to stop selling Apple Watches out of their physical stores completely. Can't sell online, can't sell through the stores, and outlets like Best Buy could sell until their stock ran out. But there was no import as of the 25th of the Apple Watch Series 9 and Ultra 2. Then the 26th, Apple put out an appeal asking for at least a stay until their appeal could go through. So they're appealing an appeal on top of the appeal. It's all very fun legal jargon. But more or less, they've asked that Customs look over options for them to get the Apple Watch being able to be sold in the United States again. And that could take anywhere between January 5th and January 10th, a couple of weeks. And Apple's just like, that. This is taking too long. Irreparable harm will occur. Research and people can find out life-changing illnesses and all this stuff from the Apple Watch. They need to be able to buy the Apple Watch, or else you're going to risk people's lives, health, and all this other stuff. So today, as we recording a little early this week, recording on Wednesday, right as we hit the record button, information's flowing in live, so we're still kind of trying to grasp it, but it looks like Apple has successfully appealed for a stay from January 5th to January 10th, so they'll be able to continue selling the Apple Watch until their appeal is heard, and if a longer stay can be introduced, which would allow them to continue selling the Apple Watch until this entire process is done. So we'll see what happens.
It's crazy, isn't it? A company saying, if you don't let us make money off people, you're endangering their lives. And yet, it's actually potentially true. I mean, sometimes you forget what we're dealing with here. I think it's just a watch, but the number of people who've survived because of it is
like
staggering.
These big colleges do research with the Apple Watch on health studies. Apple's constantly publishing those as they come out. People are claiming that they didn't know they had a atrial fibrillation or any kind of heart condition. Kids are getting Apple Watches for Christmas and going to school a week later and finding out that they have a high resting heart rate, which leads to life-saving diagnosis. Yes, it's not everyone, but each of those lives, that's an individual potentially saved because they had a piece of technology they didn't have before. And yes, Apple can't sell this as a medical device. It's not technically a life-saving device, and some doctors would argue it's a little bit overhyped in the press and dangerous to set these precedents to make people think that this is all they need to save their lives. But I think the evidence is there that at the very least owning an Apple Watch, especially depending on your own health status, maybe if you're a little older, maybe if you have certain conditions like diabetes, having an Apple Watch can be very useful as a tool. And as long as that tool isn't available, I mean, Apple, I think, is correct in saying this is bad, because their argument basically, and this is true, Massimo, the company suing them for their patents, doesn't actually have a device at the ready to replace Apple Watch. So Apple Watch being removed from sale does nothing to help or hurt Massimo, period.
Oh, I see.
And if
That makes sense.
if they release a smartwatch next week with blood pulse oximeter, oximeter and all this stuff, sure, maybe they could benefit from the ban and take advantage of those patents, but that's just not going to happen. I mean, Apple actually has countersued Masimo for the same reason, saying you're just trying to do this so you can uplift your own technology and make money in our absence. So it's such a mess, and we'll see where it goes in the next 2-3 weeks.
One thing I was actually intrigued about, because I read the filing for the appeal a couple of days ago, and it's open court document. There's all the details, except there are 2 sections that are redacted, and it's the smallest reference. So, not in Britain when things are redacted, the paragraph is there, but it's covered over in black. So, if it's a long paragraph, it's a lot of black, and you think there's a lot of detail here. This case, it looks like they might have just deleted things and put in the words redacted or something similar. So I can't tell if there's much here, but in 2 places it refers to what sounds like a design update that Apple has done or has offered that would remove this issue. So last time you and I spoke, we were talking about what they could do, and it sounds like they've gone through the route of just kind of cutting out this technology, at least for the Apple Watch Series 9.
It's kind of like what we discussed before, but a little bit more direct. We thought maybe they might do a software update. There might be a little bit of software and hardware here, because basically Apple just wants to be able to import these devices again. They're not going to call them Apple Watch 2. Ultra 2.5 or whatever. They're going to introduce the hardware changes, very minor, all the same features. Nothing's really going to change. Just how they arrive at those numbers and what technologies in use might be altered ever so slightly. And we'll see what kind of disclaimers Apple puts out about these new devices. I'm sure maybe somewhere we'll get some kind of documentation on if you have a serial number after this number, your Apple Watch will obtain data this way. We'll see what happens. It's such a funny situation because, again, it's easy. Apple keeps secrets, right? And they're so secretive it hurts them sometimes. And in this case, it kind of really hurts them because Massimo wants Apple to be the bad guy. So Massimo has put out every single detail they can publicly, like legally allowed, of, well, Apple poached our employees and promised to buy us and then didn't bother buying us and actually stole our technology to make the Apple Watch work. It's all their story. Apple doesn't release that stuff. They're in court battling this secretly, and they don't want to release their side of the information. But for all we know, Massimo tried to do crazy practices as well. We have no idea. This is what I was emphasizing last week. We won't know, and only really the judge, the jury, whoever's involved in this has all the details. So all we can do is sit aside and wait. Is it above Apple to do this? No. We've known them to be kind of shady in the past about how they acquire certain technologies, but this one seems
allegedly. Let's just throw in that word allegedly.
Allegedly,
there.
Of course.
This
one just seems a little too high profile, right? For Apple to just have stolen outright, right? That's crazy.
There is a little. I was reading one. You mentioned we were recording a little early this week. Of course, it's Christmas week. Things are all over the place. One of the things I really like about this time of year is that AppleInsider runs its month in review series. Now, actually, I write most of them, but I was reading January's and I wrote January's, but I wrote it back in January. So, looking back at what was going on then, and unbelievably, the Apple Watch ban started there. I just at the time was not taking it very seriously because never thought it would ever get that far. But there are also things along the way, like there's always an unboxed original iPhone that's been sold for $40,000 or something. Maybe if the Apple has made a hardware change, we could treat the original Apple Watch Ultra as a really rare collector's item and store it in a box and save it for 30 years and then make a vast fortune. How do you feel my business plan is working out there?
I don't think that's going to work either, William, because guess what? These watches can be sold anywhere outside the U.S., and I don't know that we're going to have two different SKUs. I think maybe going forward, whatever they do for the United States will just be the watch and will be the device. So sure, there'll probably be a limited number, but we're still talking millions and millions of these devices.
Curses. I'll tell you, one of the things then about, sorry, I said January this began, but that isn't true. What we've learned in the last few weeks, last few days before recording this, is that we can probably pinpoint the moment that the whole Apple Watch legal battle that led to the ban began. And it was something to do with one employee or something like this. Do you know this story? Do you know it better than I do?
Well, this goes just back to what we were discussing before, is people questioning Tim Cook. You're alluding to it. He got an email from a concerned employee.
That's it, yes.
About, hey, this might be a problem later if we don't fundamentally change how this technology works. And I'm not. We don't know what came from that email, just that it was sent.
Actually, I had it in my head that it was a designer that had done that, but it's not. It's just an unnamed Apple employee. But the reason it's in my mind again is, of course, this week Apple has lost yet another designer. I love this fact. When Johnny Ive left in 2019, he was just about the last member of what you can call the core Apple design team. I mean, the people who made the iMac and then the iPhone and the iPad. He was the last one standing and he left. And of course, Apple has more designers, but apparently they've lost 14 since 2019. And the latest one, we learnt originally in just a few weeks ago that one designer was leaving Apple to find other opportunities or something like that. And now we've learnt that Tang Tan is going to Johnny Ive's firm, Lowe, and specifically to work on this mysterious new OpenAI AI hardware project. I've got to ask, what's an AI hardware project? I mean, is Vision Pro AI hardware? Or is this?
I believe the only thing we have an example of is the Humane AI pen, which works off of OpenAI as well. So whatever Johnny Ive is working on might be similar in scope.
Okay, that makes sense a little bit. The report that originally came from Bloomberg said all they could manage to find out was that it might be a device for the home. And I know when Johnny Ive and Sam Altman got together with OpenAI, the story was that Ive was intending to design what was described as the iPhone of AI devices. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean it'd be a phone. It'd just be something as transformative. And I cannot think of a household device that needs AI that could be that transformative. Is this just a failure of imagination on my part, or is there actually a pressing need for an AI toothbrush or something?
Well, I do have a smart toothbrush, but I don't think it needs to be AI powered to work.
Sorry, I've got an electric toothbrush. What's smart about a smart toothbrush?
A couple of things. It's actually kind of interesting, and this is as nerdy as you can get, but it's one of those Quip toothbrushes. I don't know if you've heard of Quip before.
No.
I'm sure it might be global, but anyway, it's one of those kind of subscription services that popped up about a decade ago where they send you new brush heads every 3 months or so because dentists say you're supposed to have new brush heads and whatever. It's it's a whole thing there. But this one is smart because it connects to your phone and it logs that you've brushed your teeth and lets you keep track of that. And you kind of earn points towards rewards and stuff if you have a healthy habit. And that's all kind of silly. But the thing that I've noticed to be most useful about this toothbrush is it vibrates, of course. It's not one of those rotating heads or anything. It's just the whole thing vibrates. And it pulses when it's time to switch where you're brushing. So it's a 2-minute timer. And when it's time to switch a row of teeth, so you have 4 rows of teeth, top, bottom, left, right. When it's time to switch sides, it pulses quickly, and you know it's time to focus on the other set of teeth. It's very simple, but very, very fun. Makes it kind of a game and lets you know that you've actually brushed your teeth for 2 minutes like you're supposed to.
The things we come up with, I just count. But I'm obviously in the Stone Age. Clearly, I will.
Oh, I'll acknowledge this is completely over the top silly as far as tech goes, but it was something to play with. So I like my tech toys.
This will be because I'm in the UK. I have never heard of somewhere called Lowe's, which I gather is a store, and that they have been holding out against Apple Pay, and now they've caved, and I truly do not know what it is I could buy with Apple Pay at Lowe's, Lowe, Lowe apostrophe S. And actually, as I say it to you, it's the stores that have been holding out, but the app, there's an app as well, that's been fine with Apple Pay. Is Lowe's really significant?
It's a big part of the United States. Home Depot is its competitor, if you've ever heard of Home Depot.
Oh, yeah.
They sell lumber and house supplies, smart home stuff. You can even go there and buy Apple HomeKit things. Do you remember so Apple Pay, let's jump way back, 2016 time frame. And Apple Pay is really starting to roll out in the States. I know it was instantly available everywhere in the UK, William, but
yes, it was. But
we had to change our registers, and a lot of stuff had to happen to really implement it in the United States. And there was this group of stores, CVS, Lowe's, Walmart, a couple of other guys that were kind of big.
Sorry, I know where you're going. This is Constant C.
Yep.
Isn't it? They were trying to do something else?
They were trying to be clever.
Current
C. And they created this terrible QR code system where you scan a QR code and they scan yours, and you're in the line for an hour and a half. You might as well write a check because it'd probably be faster. And because they just really didn't want to pay the fees associated with both credit card suppliers and Apple Pay. So they just avoided it entirely. And slowly but surely we've whittled away what companies are left, and I think we're down to pretty much just Walmart not accepting Apple Pay, because CVS and Lowe's now and a few others have adopted, at least at a corporate level, Apple Pay. So that means you can go to the app and use it, but that means the stores, we franchise in America, so franchise owners will have to actually update their registers, and that's going to take time, but at least their official stance has changed to where they say, yes, Apple Pay is totally fine.
Kind of leaping around here because you've put things in my mind, but you mentioned QR codes there and terrible QR codes. I only recently, as in the last few hours, found out that scammers will go around parking places, parking meters, and stick a fake QR code on top of the real one so that you get directed to a phishing site and all of this stuff. Federal Trade Commission, I read it on their site. They said about it, so I'm sure it's real. But is this a big thing? Have I been foolishly scanning stuff with abandon and should be more careful?
Well, you should at least pay attention to where you're going. But they can do a great job of disguising the landing page, because how many people are going to go peep at the URL and make sure they're actually on the website they thought they were going to? As long as the banner reads, pay here, whatever, parking.com, they're just going to do whatever they need to do and probably get their car towed on top of it because they didn't actually pay for a parking spot.
Yes.
Sorry,
I shouldn't laugh. I just hadn't thought of that side of it. Yes, fooled, and they also didn't pay for the parking.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's a messy situation. People have learned now, even tech illiterate types have learned QR codes do something when you point your camera at them. Apple's made it a very clever feature, and every time I show it to someone, they're like, "Wow, I didn't know you could do that." And in case you didn't know, you can actually screenshot a QR code and then launch the website from the photo using the text reader inside of Photos app. But anyway, I don't know. QR codes are such an odd technology that I like what Apple's doing here with their... Now, I'm going to say this. I wonder if you remember this, William. Do you remember app clips?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was walking somewhere on holiday and something came up that offered me, I don't know, a haircut or something nearby, and it turned out to be an app clip. But, I mean, I never get my haircut.
I've seen app clips in the wild maybe 3 times since their inception in, 2018. And
2018?
I can't.
Wow.
That's a guess. It's somewhere around there. But,
I
saw one the other day. I was at Exxon, a gas station, not British Petroleum, I'm sure your preferred gasoline of choice, William.
Yeah, BP has some issues, shall we say. Okay.
So I was at an Exxon gas station, and one of the things I like to do, and again, it's just one of those silly tech wow factors that just people don't know you can do. I have the Exxon app, and I open it up and put in what pump I'm at, and I can Apple Pay all from the driver's seat. and then I just get out and stick the pump in the car, and I'm pumping gas. Don't have to do anything. It's already paid for. Apple Pay complete. They actually added stickers to their pumps for app clips for the Exxon app, so you don't even have to have it installed anymore. So when you go to the station and need to pay, you can go tap that app clip, and you're launching the app and paying, and you don't have to do anything. That's if you maybe you're more privacy conscious, or you see one Exxon every 10 years or something. But I just found that interesting that was there. Yeah. And the only other place I've ever actually seen an app clip is I was at a restaurant, and it popped up on my lock screen saying that you could download the app clip for the menu there, which was interesting.
This episode is brought to you by Notion. There's no shortage of helpful AI tools out there, but using them means switching back and forth between yet another digital tool. So instead of simplifying your workflow, it just becomes more complicated, unless, of course, you're in Notion. Notion combines your notes, docs, and projects into one space that's simple and beautifully designed. And the fully integrated Notion AI helps you work faster, write better, and think bigger, doing tasks that normally take you hours in just seconds. It's your work, your ideas, but you can have Notion's AI turn, say, those hurried, messy meeting notes into something polished. Notion is also particularly good at automation. Say you're in a team, and whenever you create a meeting agenda, you need your boss to approve it. Notion can automatically send them a message over Slack, say, saying that it's ready to see. It's simple to set up, it saves you time, and it also means you never forget to do it. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/AppleInsider. That's all lowercase letters, notion.com/AppleInsider, to try the powerful, easy-to-use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show, notion.com/AppleInsider. Thank you to Notion for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. Nice. Just by pure chance, today I was being told about I have a local supermarket. It tends to be the cheapest place for petrol, so that's where you go. But they've changed the pumps. There's some new system where once you have entered your whatever, it takes a full minute for it to return with your option of a receipt.
It's atrocious.
Or not. What can it be doing for a minute with this data?
Contacting, let's see, the Queen,
phoning
and
its
the
friends.
Secret Service.
Okay.
No,
just to be up to date, there, the King.
Of course.
Now we have a
it
king.
will always be
Yes,
the Queen to me,
yes.
because I'm just going to pretend I don't know what's going on over there. No,
Okay.
No, it's just more fun to say the Queen. The King, that guy can go take a nap. It's fine. What's
Right. Sorry, just dismissing
the entire monarchy.
King of England. And I can't fully disagree. So okay, yes, but
no, so we have a chain in the state of Tennessee. I don't believe it's outside of it. Maybe in Georgia, but Tennessee, right? We have a chain called gosh, it escapes me at this moment. What? This is important. I need to know the name of this stupid gas station. But anyway, this small chain, it's up and coming in Tennessee, and they're pretty fancy. They're one of those ones where you can go order a sandwich while you're getting your gas or whatever. They have one of those little sandwich bars. And anyway, yeah, so Weigels, if anyone listening knows what a Weigels is. Anyway, so I was like, okay, cool. This is like, it's a new upcoming gas station. Surely they've figured out a few technological things. And I go, and they have a rewards program, and they have an app. So I download the app just because why not? I want to test it. And it says, works with Apple Wallet. I open the app. Nope. No way to add anything to Apple Wallet. They lied to me. The barcode inside of the app has to be scanned by the register person. Which, again, so that means you have to open the app, navigate to a barcode, and have them scan it. So that's just 10 layers of awful. When in the Apple Wallet app, you just double tap and there's your barcode or whatever. Okay, whatever. I can get beyond that. But hey, I can pay at the pump, right? That's interesting. So I go do the thing like I would at Exxon, pull up to the pump, put in my number, and it says either you pay with Weigel's credit card or you register your debit card to deduct from your account. So I'd have to give them all of my information to pay at the pump instead of using Apple Pay. And I'm just like, what is happening here? And this particular instance has brought it to more my attention and I've brought this up on the show before, so I'm just going to keep ranting about it till someone fixes it, of just how broken all these systems are, right? Like, it's the same thing with Starbucks. You can't add your Starbucks card to wallet anymore. They want you to open the app, navigate to a page. Target, same deal. So Apple Wallet's just been essentially abandoned by all these major companies. Paying at the pump, they don't want you to use Apple Pay. They want access to your credit card information, likely so they can purchase that data from MasterCard or Visa, so they know exactly who's using their pumps and who's using the app, because that's the kind of data they like to have. It's just, I understand why they do these things, because they're so awful, but they need their money. These multi-million-dollar corporations obviously need every penny they can get, but it just hurts me to know that there's so much awesome, cool little pieces of technology out there that are just virtually ignored because, convenience and money. So what's Exxon doing? Is it because they have so much more money than Weigel's that they're able to take Apple Pay? I don't understand.
You'd think any of these systems have a cost. Not just also the cost of running them for the companies, but I was listening to a developer talking about one of the things that changed in an app, and he referred to the way that in the older version you used to have to click here and then here and then here to go there, and he described that as a cost to the user of getting to a function. You would think there's got to be a certain number of people who just think, forget it, I'm paying with cash, or I'll go to the next gas station down the road, that they would lose enough money that it's worth paying Apple or somebody.
I've said it before, I feel like if you implement these technologies in a way that makes sense for the user and educate your users about them, you're gaining trustworthy customers who will return, because they're like, man, this not only is this convenient and simple, but it lets me use the technology I pay for to go to better use day to day. Like, anyone who sees me use the Exxon app, they're always just in awe of, wow, that's really cool. Because, William, let me explain to anyone listening who maybe doesn't drive a car regularly that, it's enough of a population that some people just, that they might use transport, trolleys, right? Any kind of subway kind of thing. Maybe you haven't filled up a car in a while, but here's what happens when you try to fill up a car in the United States. First, you get out of the car and you go to the kiosk, and it's playing an ad for a extra large soda, and then it switches over to the weather, and then you're trying to give it your credit card, and then it pops up and asks if you'd like to join the rewards club, if you need a car wash, if there's a coupon for a sandwich you'd like to print out while you're getting your gasoline. And then after you've done all of that, you're entering your zip code so that way it can keep track of you buying these things. And maybe by the time you've done all of that, and of course you're waiting forever because everyone at this gas station is doing the same thing, and all these pumps are connected to the internet. They're all using bandwidth, trying to display video ads to you while you're trying to get gasoline, and it's just this long process. And finally, you're pumping gas, and guess what? Now you're getting advertised even more things. So it's awful. So if I can just get out of the car, pop the pump in the thing, and start pumping gas without having to even deal with the kiosk, heaven. It's just absolute heaven. I wish everyone would do that.
I had no clue that it was like that there. Oh, well, if it's like that there, it's going to be like it here soon, and I dread the future. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what. One thing I was thinking that whether you like Apple or not, you can easily support the argument that they do think of the consumer. They design things for how they're going to be used, whereas some of these other companies, they're looking at the cost to them. It's almost like the consumer comes second. But explain this to me, because just to go back to the QR code thing, because I was quite shocked by this. I regularly scan QR codes with my iPhone, but I do it through Control Center. Swipe down, there's QR app, do it, off you go. And it is different if you do that compared to using the camera on the iPhone. Right. If you instead open the camera and point it at something with a QR code, it spots the QR code. But before it takes you to it, it displays in text the URL that it's going to go to. And the Control Center one doesn't do it. So people were telling me, you're fine, you got to check your QR code before you go. And I think, well, how? How do I know till I've gone there? That is how. Why is the Control Center one different to the camera.
But I think
why are they doing this?
I think it's also trying to use a different like accessibility feature because it's using text scanning in that instance, and then it opens like a modal browser window, whereas the camera app opens the actual Safari app to display the web page. So it's just a different experience altogether. But yeah, we got off on a little tangent on QR codes. I will say they are everywhere. Everyone's trained on them. They know to scan them, and it's very simple to slap a sticker over top of a QR code that leads you to a completely different website that'll take your information. I mean, the fact that already I can educate like someone like my mother all day on only shop on Amazon unless you know the website you're going to. If it's a Target or a Walmart, those are safe. But if you see an ad on Facebook, I always forget what they're called, but it's like they're reselling something that's available readily on Amazon or what's that Chinese version?
Oh, Weibo.
Yeah, so like it's
sorry,
AliExpress. It's readily available on something like AliExpress for like $5. But this website decided it looks cool, and they go and bought a bunch of stock of it, and now they're advertising it on Facebook for $10. And because they're spending all that advertising revenue, it's getting in front of a lot of people, whereas the original seller isn't, right? So anyway, it's just this whole scam operation, and they take you to their website, and you need to enter your credit card information. And my mom actually ran into one over the holiday where it asks you for your Cash App information, right? One of those peer-to-peer payment systems. And I'm just like, if anything ever asks for that, close everything, set the phone on fire. Like it's, whatever it is, it's not good. It's just, these things are out there. So I can easily see a QR code becoming just easily, what's the word? My brain isn't working today.
Misuse,
yeah, easily just targeted for malicious intent. Just especially since we've trained everyone. Yeah, just scan it. That's how this works. This is what you're supposed to do with a QR code. Just scan it, open it, and use it. And people are doing it, and now they're finding out the hard way. You can't trust everything that you encounter, especially in technology.
I tell you, I'm actually going to remove the QR scanner from Control Center. I mean, the camera's in there anyway, isn't it? Or at least it's very quick to get to it. And my Control Center extends down the bottom of the screen. I have too many things. So I'll be glad to get rid of one, but that is going. I think, I'm actually tempted. Actually, given what you've said, forget Control Center. I'm just going to ditch the entire iPhone and go to Android. Especially now that Beeper is in my corner, still pushing away, getting the green. But is it not still doing that?
So we managed to actually report on this as it was happening last week, and nothing's actually changed since. Beeper put out a blog post basically saying, sorry, we give up. Apple's making it too hard. Go get that jailbroken iPhone, which we did mention last week. They'll let you, if you have an iPhone, go buy an old one, keep it powered on and connected to Wi-Fi 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It will act as a Beeper server for iMessage. Or you can get a Mac Mini or a Raspberry Pi. There's ways to do it. It's just way too much work for what you're trying to achieve. And they put out that statement of Apple's making this too difficult. We can't sue them because it would bankrupt us. We're going to continue working on our original Beeper app, which is, communications for all, and we're going to see what we can make arise for iMessage on Android. But in the meantime, we're just do with the tools that we've given you. We're stepping away from it, and it appears that nothing has changed there. And I think they finally just kind of given up. So I'm going to call it, December 21st when that blog post went out. Beeper is officially dead as a tool to get iMessage on Android.
So they're saying good luck and good night. But December 21st, apparently, this is the thing I didn't know, and I don't think we knew it last week. On December the 12th, the CEO of Beeper met with the Department of Justice to discuss all of this and Apple-alleged antitrust stuff. Now, I can't find out whether or not it was the DOJ who requested a meeting, in which case they're already investigating Apple for antitrust. Maybe this is just one more thing on the checklist, or whether Beeper was trying to do something. Do we have any idea?
If I had to guess, it's DOJ sought out Beeper because we saw several senators pick up on this during the transition through various loopholes of trying to get iMessage. I think Elizabeth Warren a couple of other senators stepped in and said, hey, we need to do something about this. Apple's monopoly over messaging has gone too far. So I'm sure that they requested an inquiry through Beeper to say, hey, what's actually going on here? And every podcast that covers Apple has discussed this ad nauseum, so we don't need to get too much into it. But it seems like Beeper wants Apple to host their client on their servers so that they can get iMessage to Android. So Apple's basically footing the bill, which is how their cheat kind of works. It's putting all of the onus on Apple. Beeper is actually not really running any of the technology. They just figured out a workaround. And that's kind of a no-no. So if you're expecting any of this to lead anything to anything, it's not. Now, what we could see in the future is something like what the EU is doing and requesting that messaging services gain interoperability of some kind, which I feel like is inevitable because just enough people are clamoring for it. I don't see it lasting forever, that iMessage is such an exclusive property. Now, what version of iMessage everyone gets, that's a different story.
Yeah. Okay, so you just mentioned the EU there, and for one brief moment I thought, oh, I'm in the EU. No, I'm in Europe. I'm in Britain, so Brexit, European Union, all that stuff, yeah. But thinking of Britain in a positive way, I learnt this week that, unbelievably, tourism is actually slightly up in some ways for Britain, because there are people who are visiting the locations for TV shows. Now, I know that happens a lot. Ted Lasso's pub has been featured before, but now, this made me so happy. Apparently people are visiting London to see the decrepit office building that's at the centre of Slow Horses. Have you been following Slow Horses on Apple TV+?
I wish I have been, but no. It's on my to-do list of things to watch.
Right, well, stop talking to me. Go watch.
It's definitely,
if anybody's heard of
everything about Slow Horses. I love Gary Oldman. I love the premise. Like, all of it sounds great. I just haven't, I'm behind on everything at this point.
Well, for shame. But I can tell you one nice thing. Since people are so interested in this office block, I can tell you, Mick Herron, who wrote the original books, used to work in various offices, and I don't think he worked in this one, but he used to walk by it in London on his way to work every day, and it looked so dreary and depressing. He made it the setting for this. Well, it's dreary and depressing, but it's also exciting and funny. I don't know how he pulls that off. Or Will Smith, who writes the TV show, how they manage it. But this office building was in his head throughout all of the books. And Apple actually hired the same building to film in it. So that is the building that inspired the books there. I love that. But that's just one of many programs on Apple. That sounds like a TV advert, isn't it? Just one of many programs on Apple TV Plus. But this year, Apple TV Plus, it hasn't really grown its library very much, but it has doubled its viewing hours. And I love the stuff that's on Apple TV Plus now, and I didn't for such a long time. Are you behind on, well, you are behind on Slow Horses, but what about Silo and Severance? And other things beginning with S. Are you missing all of these?
There are a lot of S titles. So I'm actually catching up on Silo. I'm on episode 7 or so. It's such an excellent TV series. I love it.
Yes.
Really excited to see where it goes. Definitely one of those edge of your seat type of guys. For All Mankind, lovely. Just, I can go on and on. So, people keep asking, like, what do you watch on Apple TV Plus? And I'm just like, pick one and just start watching it. Because it's so hard for me to make say, just avoid this one. You don't want to watch this one. It's the only things I haven't watched are the foreign language films and the actual baby shows, right? Because there are a few of those. Otherwise, I'm pretty much. I
must have missed those. Yeah.
There are
you're in on everything.
Well, there's the talking wiener dogs, and there's a couple of like magical shows. There's a talking panda one where he tells stories.
That's just gone straight past my head entirely.
Right, so there are some children's programming, and anyone who follows me's heard me beg Apple for, please just bring on some Cartoon Network 2000s era teenage animation styles. Like I would kill for a new Adventure Time or Steven Universe style show to appear on Apple TV Plus. Just go hire Rebecca Sugar and make her do things. Who created those properties? Well, helped with those properties. But anyway. Yeah, it's just, of everything I've watched, I can't pick a dud, and I've watched almost everything. Right, lacking a couple of documentaries and, like I said, a couple of those other shows. And it's no surprise to me that the viewership keeps ticking up, because if you buy any Apple products, you're slammed immediately with, you get 3 months of Apple TV free. And it's becoming increasingly obvious that you really just need a bundle. If you own an iPhone, pay for Apple One, you get Apple Music, you get Apple TV. Like, it all just kind of fits together, and it's just the popularity of it and everything is soaring. So I'm excited to see the future of this. I know there's some whispers that Paramount Discovery is experimenting with bringing some property partnership with Apple TV or a subscription bundle or something. I don't know, but there's a lot of cute little ways that these industries can work together, and I want to see what they do in 2024, because we have so much content on that platform alone that I could probably just cancel everything else I have, to be completely honest, because Apple TV Plus has been my most watched service in 2023.
This episode is brought to you by Masterclass. It's the online training you get from world-class experts, famously at the top of their industries, across 11 categories, ranging from arts to cooking to business to science and more. Masterclass is very practical. You get hours of classes with these instructors, but it's also amazingly confidence building. For instance, if I have even passed you on the street, I have stopped you to enthuse about what I've learned from Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster has a masterclass. I admired her work before, but now after 4 hours of her being clever, funny, passionate, I'm a fan. She treats you like an equal, and it is exactly like getting personal, face-to-face tuition from someone brilliant. Now, you or I, we would never be able to hire an instructor of that caliber. I mean, it's not just unimaginable cost. They're doing the work that they are talking about. People of this caliber are just not available. Yet they are through Masterclass for $10 a month or $120 a year. One fee gets you everything. Unlimited access to the whole streaming platform with over 180 Masterclass instructors. This holiday season, give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. AppleInsider15. So right now, you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. masterclass.com/AppleInsider15. Offer terms apply. Thank you to Masterclass for supporting the Apple Insider podcast. I kind of weaned myself off Netflix once I'd finished Lupin, so it might. I'm really surprised to say it might be the same.
Netflix has nothing
I thought
for
I'd just
me.
dabble.
They've ended all the shows that I supported. Like, I really enjoyed BoJack Horseman. There's a couple of really nice Netflix shows that I just carried on with, and I know it's different for you over there in the UK. You get a few shows on Netflix that's on Hulu, or for me, or something like that. But
that's true.
I use Hulu quite a bit, but that's just for mostly network TV. Like, I like watching Family Guy still, even though it's just a repetitive show at this point. HBO is probably, like, Max now is my go-to outside of Apple TV. So if everyone's always like, pick 2 and the rest have to go, like, I guess my pick 2 would be Apple TV Plus and Max. Like, those are just my services at this point. And by far, the most watched definitely is Apple TV Plus, because I've watched multiple shows on TV Plus, whereas on HBO Max, I've seen Last of Us. I watched John Oliver. It's a very short list. Fiona and Cake, of course. But
of course, yes, no idea what that is, but okay, yes.
Sorry, I added a link here. I was wondering if you've realized. So, synergy is very important at Apple, and they're terrible at advertising it, but they're actually really good at this stuff. So Apple TV stuff will appear in Apple Music, or Apple Music will have stuff in Apple Maps. It's super weird, but they do it all the time. Podcasts has content from other things. So I shared with you a link called I Just Love, which is an Apple Maps guide of a bunch of Apple TV shows. So stars sharing their favorite locations around the world. So you can go and find out about Lee Pace from Foundation and where he likes to visit. And again, Apple Maps has these interactive guides. It's such a very odd thing. I feel like everyone on Earth has forgotten about this feature, but
yes,
it's actually very handy. Do you use the guide system at all, William, or do you create your own personal guides?
I had an extended holiday from Tokyo to Alaska to Vancouver early in the year, and I created a guide partly on the way of place want to go, but also actually in not in retrospect, as we were doing it. So I built up. Nobody is going to follow exactly the same route, but for me, it's nice to look back at a guide on these things. I thought I was an extensive Apple Maps user, and I'd never heard of this. And I'm got to admit, I'm scrolling through the list of people I've never heard of who are recommending places that
I've never heard of.
I'm probably not going to go. Yeah.
But
there's a long list here.
It's an odd system because you have to kind of go looking for the guides. And really the way I've found it works best is if you're planning to travel to a major city, Nashville or Washington or something like that, you go to Apple Maps and search the guides for that specific city and see if there's anything available for that city. Obviously, you're not going to do it the other way around and start with a guide and plan your trip around it. But there's a lot of interesting little things in here. It's again, Apple has this huge editorial team in news, App Store, music, and maps now, apparently. They've been doing this for a few years, and I want anyone who actually has used these to success, the ones created by Apple, to reach out and let us know if you have any favorites. But for me, the personal guides are great because anytime we visit somewhere, especially places that I know I'm going to return to, I like creating, just adding everywhere we go to the guide so I can see we ate at this restaurant, we went to this amusement area, stuff like that. We took a photo in front of this monument, and all of it's there in that guide. I can see our entire trip at a glance, and Apple's rating system's there. You can thumbs up, thumbs down, add your own photos. I think they're doing a pretty good job here, but I feel like surfacing all this stuff still needs some work that Apple needs to do because obviously everyone just uses Google Maps, right?
Well, you can bet the link to I Just Love is going to be the show notes for this, and I'm going to bookmark it as well. Can you bookmark a link in Apple Maps? Well, I'm going to at least remember that it's there and search for it when next I go on my travels. That sounded serious.
It's a URL, but you definitely, it won't let you bookmark it. You could save the URL to your bookmarks, I suppose.
Good point. I use an app called Hookmark that lets you link anything to anything. So an email from a client, you can be in the email and with a button you're suddenly in the document they've sent last year, the invoice you're sending next time. I think I will add it to Apple Maps so that with a quick keystroke I can go straight into that. This is proving useful. I'm trimming down Control Center. Right. I'm adding to Apple Maps. All right, I like this.
I think I need a new title, though, is Champion of Features No One's Ever Heard of, because this is like my favorite silly thing is just going through all of these, because Apple announces new stuff every year, and we all stick to the big stuff, like, sticker reactions and stuff like that, but I want people to discover that you can create stickers from photos, right? Like, there's all these little things in your operating system that disappear to the wayside because they're just not frontlining features, and I find it fascinating that people don't use it. Like Fitness Plus, you can create your own workout schedule, right, and have it notify you every day when you're supposed to be working out, or like Apple Music having the profile system where you can follow other people and have them update to your friends list and stuff like that, or like see playlists that you've made. There's just all these little interconnecting things in the background that I feel like so many people just buy and use their phones and they don't realize there's all this fun little technology. For instance, my niece, she's 16, and she was over recently, and I was showing her the FaceTime on Apple TV feature. And I hook up her phone to the TV, right? And her contact list shows up, and it's all first names sorted alphabetically by first name, so automatically I'm in pain. And she uses emoji to distinguish who is who in her list, and she has a couple hundred contacts because these days everyone in school shares it with each other. She's like, there's people in there that I haven't talked to since like third grade. I'm like, you need to do something with this because this is utterly painful. But she was making fun because she saw my contacts list and it's all first name, last name, sorted by last name, and she's like, how do you know everyone's last name? I'm like, I ask for it when I'm getting their contact information. It's just so funny to me, like the generational things. I wonder, as she's growing into adulthood, what her systems are going to be like as she, has to keep up with all this stuff and what she's going to have to adapt to. And this is the stuff I think about, William. I don't know if it's interesting at all, but
Okay, well, it's going to occupy me now. How she tracks down people afterwards. You could end up marrying your cousin because you didn't know you had the same surname or anything like that. Okay, that's gone off on one. I'm now going to refer to you as, I've got to get this right, you're obviously Wes Hilliard, Kofnoffer, champion of features no one has heard of. Kofner.
Oh,
okay?
terrible.
So please put that on LinkedIn or wherever, or other services are available. Okay,
So-
you're just looking at me.
I have, as we come to the end of this episode, I have a couple questions for you, William. Do you do the New Year's resolutions? Do you have any resolutions this year? Or are you anti-resolution?
I actually take some time to plan out my year's writing. I mean, obviously I write for Apple Insider, and I hope that will continue, but there are books I want to get underway, and there's a particular book project that's died 10 years ago and might be coming back. So I'm trying to work out when to do that. I plan in that sense. I give myself tent poles to aim for. But going to do more workouts, going to eat fewer curries. No, I don't do that.
Right.
I just don't get around to it. And I have this horrible sense that not only do you do it, but you stick to them. Is that what I'm hearing?
No and no. If I ever make any goal, it's just abject failure. I think we're both listeners to the Cortex podcast, and
No.
you don't. Oh,
No,
I highly recommend
no.
Cortex. Anyone listening, if you're
Cortex.
a productivity type person, that's one of those Relay FM guys. It's pretty.
Oh,
pretty,
right. Yeah, I like Relay.
pretty good stuff. Anyway,
Yes.
they are very against resolutions, and I agree with their insight into the situation. They go with something called themes for the year, where you have a guiding principle for the year, where you say, this is going to be the year where I make sure I take time off. So anytime you're making a decision about something, does this improve on your theme, or does it go against your theme? And that's kind of like their idea, rather than saying, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, because if you don't lose 50 pounds, now you failed. If you lose 49 pounds, now you failed, right? Even though, wow, you lost 49 pounds. That's amazing. So yeah, I'm definitely of that school of thinking. And for me, I think my goal is just fitness. Mostly, I've got a little handheld weight set so I can participate in Fitness Plus, because some of those require you to have hand weights and exercise bikes and stuff. And so like I'm trying to push myself to just be more fitness focused, get outside more. Actually, the Apple Watch tracks how long you're outside every day, and I want to hit that 30-minute minimum of sunlight every day, just going on walks and stuff and things like that.
Okay, no, hang on. I've had an Apple Watch since the start, and I didn't know it did that. Have I just never been out for more than 30 minutes? Where do I enable that or disable it? Probably
It's in the health app somewhere. It's time and sunlight is the metric, and it uses the brightness sensor, because sunlight is just bright. It's using that compared to the like geolocation, so it sees not only are you away from a building, but it also sees that it's bright outside. So I think it just kind of correlates that to say you are in the sunlight. But yeah, it's a useful feature, because especially in the winter, seasonal affected disorder, like you need to get the extra sun, you need the extra time in the sun. I think it's a useful metric. I've been using streaks to track a lot of these things, because streaks can tie to your health app, and it knows if you've brushed your teeth, or if it knows if you've been in sunlight, or I actually use streaks to log how long I've taken to enter a journal entry in Apple Journal. So just little things like that. So I'm trying to just be more mindful of my health and of my life, and keep track of that information and make use of it, and actually utilize the technology that I have in a way that is useful, rather than just kind of playing around with it for work. You know what I mean?
you realise you have just done it again and surfaced a feature I hadn't heard of. So I'm going to listen to this episode and take notes. That's what.
Champion of features no one's heard of. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I wish it was a nicer pronounceable acronym.
Someone come up with.
I'll have forgotten it by next week.
Yeah, someone come up with an acronym that suits this particular ability of mine of just finding things that no one even remembers Apple announcing that actually exists. So.
Well, actually, let's join two dots here. You mentioned Cortex as a favourite podcast. One of my absolute favourites is 99% Invisible, about design things, nothing to do with technology necessarily.
I've heard of that one.
But just a few weeks ago, they mentioned something that fits this. It's coming. You know, when people come up with a word first and then find letters that it could stand for. Like every US legislation, they do it this way around. That is actually called a backronym, and I utterly love that word.
It's a good word.
And I learnt it from 99% Invisible. So there you go. You've offered me. I just love Time in the Sunshine. Weird shows I'd never heard of on Apple TV, but really will examine very closely. And in return, I've given you a word. So that feels like we're even for it. One last quick thing there. You talked about your year next year, and you reminded me there are people who don't have even themes. They pick a word for the year. And I've thought about this, but it would usually be something like panic. So I don't even bother with that. We do know... Well, no, that's too strong. We suspect, no, even that's too strong. Ming-Chi Kuo, analyst, believes that he is aware of the possibility of everything Apple is doing next year, which obviously includes Vision Pro, possibly towards the start, but also a Mac event towards the end of the year. Should we just wait for that to come round, or do we know what we're going to get at a Mac event next year?
I mean, just more Macs, probably the M4 at the end of the year, if this is what he's talking about. So,
all right. More new Macs. You heard it here first, and possibly last, but I think we can call that a very accurate
there will be an
prediction.
iPhone in 2024. It's kind of like those after credit scenes in Marvel movies. Iron Man will return in the Avengers. It's the iPhone will return in 2024.
I think we're nailing it for accurate predictions.
I think
now come back in a year.
I wanted to offer this, and I think it's a little sullied by Ming-Chi Kuo's report because it actually quite aligned with this. But I was going to have a moment in the last episode to talk about this, and I don't believe we got to it. But the procession of events of how the Vision Pro is going to roll out. So this is from my understanding of how things are being set up, and I think it actually goes pretty well with what Ming-Chi Kuo said in this report. But from the looks of it, employees are being trained now. Initial stock is being sent to stores so they can have display units and education centers in Apple stores around the United States at the very least in January, where people can come, get sized for their fittings, get their optical inserts checked, everything, basically get their order made and pre-order in January is my assumption is what's going to happen here is you're going to be able to go sit down in a store, put on one of these headsets, have everything measured and adjusted, put in your complete order, and then go home. And then in February, the box will arrive at your home. You'll have already gone through the training system, basically understanding how to put everything together. This is basically what they're setting up for and doing it a month in advance because it's not going to be everyone going to be buying these, but I think it's still going to be significant enough that it will take time. You'll probably have to make an appointment through the Genius Bar to get fitted and to test these things and get told how to do this stuff because Apple is really focusing on education for this. And so, so there will be some units in stores for testing, for trying everything on, for getting the pre-order ready. And then February, we will see these things start to ship and possibly sell out very much instantly and be on back order for 6 months. What do you think, William?
Well, for a minute there, I was disappointed. I thought the idea, if you're spending that amount of money, I want to be able to walk out of the store with one. But you mean initially there'll be that, and then at some point
later,
it'll be straight off the shelves.
Yeah, later you'll eventually be able to walk out the store. But again, that's on the assumption that the store will have your head thing, visor, whatever. They will have your optical inserts. Everything will be available that you need in that store because there's a lot of little parts to this. And according to, I've lost track of rumors. It appears that Apple is going to have employees trained not only on how to sell this device and tell people about it, but how to package it because it's going to have to be hand packaged per person in the store if they do get to take it home from the store because it's going to be the main headset and then each piece basically into its own box and then sent out the door with the person. And imagine, traveling to an Apple store an hour and a half away and getting home and finding out that they left out one of the optical inserts, right? So they have to really do this right. But I think the home shipment is definitely the first angle here.
Right. Well, I suppose all of this also presumes that you have the money to spend on these things.
You're not going to be able to order these online, just period, at first. Like, I just don't think that's going to be a thing for at least a very long time. They're going to want you to come to a store.
And frankly, the only thing that's stopping me buying 5 or 6 of them in maybe different colours is that it won't be available in the UK at first. Well, otherwise, I'd be right there. Yeah.
To bring this back full circle, William, I believe what you need to do is you need to buy 2 Vision Pro headsets. Put one, keep it in its box, put it on a shelf, and in about 40 years, sell it for $100,000.
Right, and I could also fly to the States with my contraband Apple Watch Series 9s and Ultras, sell those, put the money towards the box. Yeah, all right. Okay, well, we have a new business plan for the year. This is obviously the last of the Apple Insider podcasts. New businesses for everybody around. Yeah, on that bombshell, this is the last one for the year. So, Wes, Happy New Year. Happy Year to anybody listening.
Happy New Year.
For it. It's great that we get to talk about this stuff all the time. So, and we'll keep doing it throughout 2024. I'm going to struggle saying 24 already, but I'll get there.
Do leave us a review and let us know about how terrible my voice was this week, because I may have a slight cold I'm fighting off. So if you made it to the end of the show, that's the stuff you stick around for, is finding out, he's not holding his nose this episode. He's just got a cold.
Thank you for talking to me through the pain. Now go off and have somewhat, and we'll all be back together chatting away in the new year. Thanks very much, by the way, to Notion and Masterclass for sponsoring this week's episode, and goodbye.